So, how did you get involved with one of the most popular podcasts now, the Telepathy Tapes? Tell us a little backstory about how you became the very integral scientific voice there.
Well, I've been doing research with these psychic autistic individuals for about 15 years now. And as I said, I had sort of predicted in my book, The ESP Enigma, that I thought that, that these autistic kids who have such a high incidence of savant syndrome are probably psychic, because to me, that's what savant syndrome implies. So I was already doing that kind of work. I was presenting it with that kind of a framework because I knew that science had already accepted savant syndrome. And so I saw that as kind of my way of opening up the door to people looking at another paradigm that would then make them go, oh, okay, ESP, yeah, I guess, sure, that makes sense too. And so this is what I'd been doing, and then speaking on podcasts, because there were people who would, and radio shows and whatnot, that people had heard about my work. And there was a video that was made of my work with Ramses, who was this amazing autistic boy who could speak 8 languages at the age of 5. And his mother says he could do it even when he was 2. I met him when he was 5. Um, and he had telepathy with his mother. That video of him went viral with like over 9 million views. So I already had a following, and and yet I was still self-funding my research, because when I'd apply for a grant, it'd be like, oh, well, that sounds too controversial to do. Like, okay, well, as a practicing doctor, I can, make enough money that I can, then pay for my travel expenses to do the research. And so, but I wanted to do a documentary because I knew that people needed to see it to believe it, that my just writing a paper about it wasn't sufficient. So I was trying to raise my own funds for a documentary, but that's really not my expertise. And I was still working as a medical doctor. And over the course of the years, different people had approached me, saying they wanted to do a documentary about my work. And I was going to do a documentary with Leslie Kean, and then the pandemic happened, and her focus shifted to doing a different documentary. And it was during that time period that Kai contacted me by email, and she said, I saw you on a podcast, and I'm really fascinated by what you had to say. Can I come and interview you? And after she interviewed me, she said, you're getting emails from, people all around the world who claim their kids can do these things. I said, yeah. And she said, can you just show me a couple emails? And I said, okay. And I showed her a couple of emails, and she said, wow. She said, I'm going to get some seed money, and I want it. I'm going to make my next documentary about you. So then she got some seed money, and we did some experiments. She was blown away. I mean, totally blown away. And so then she decided she was going to try to pitch it to television and streaming services, and people were really fascinated by it, and they were interested in it at the level of the pitch team. But when it went up to upper management wanted to do something that would change it slightly. And Kai she was not going to let somebody else basically take it from where she had gone with it with me, and do their own particular take on it. And so she and I talked, and the families talked, and she said, what about if we do a podcast? Because that would be a way to generate interest and get funds for the documentary so that we have control over it, the contents of it. And I'm like, okay, And so then we worked on the documentary, and what blew me away the most was how that went from a premiering in September to surpassing Joe Rogan within 3 months. That's what blew me away the most because then that put me in like all of a sudden all of this attention on me and I I haven't frankly been able to keep up with all of the emails and attention. Um, so my goal is to have some staff to help me, with all of these different aspects what I'm doing. It'll stretch me. I can't clone me, and so it's the best next thing to cloning me.